How do you manage a board of directors meetings? If you've never managed a board of directors meeting before, it can be very confusing in terms of what to do and how to prepare. By the end of this video, you're going to know exactly what to do and how to prepare and how to present to your board directors. I've been presenting to boards now for over 20 years. And based on my experience, I'm going to walk you through all the steps you're going to need so that your board will be very well informed and understand exactly what's going on with your company by the end of today's video. So let's get started. There are 3 parts you need to understand to properly present to your board of directors. There's the pre-board meeting preparation, there's the board meeting itself, and there's the post-board meeting. And now we're going to go through all 3 of those steps. Now for the pre-board meeting. The first thing you need to do is set up a schedule for your board meetings. Isn't that interesting? You have to set up a schedule because guess what? Your investors are very busy people. Their schedules are fluid, they move around, and it's difficult to do these things. So what you want to do is, let's say you already have a board of directors. Well, wait until the fall, right about October timeframe or so, October, November timeframe, and get the meeting and get the calendar set up for the next year's board meetings. You can work with the admin of one of your investors, especially if you have a venture investor. Typically, you can ask one of the admin of one of your investors to help out, and they will coordinate with the other people involved and get everybody's calendars aligned for your board meetings. So that's what you want to do. Now, what's the frequency of your meetings? Typically about every 6 to 12 weeks would be about right. If you're a very small early stage startup, make it a minimum of 6 weeks, hopefully a little longer than that. Don't do every 4 weeks or else you're going to find yourself going insane because you're going to be presenting to your board all the time and it's just going to be overwhelming. But that kind of gives you an idea of what you have to do. So work with your admin of one of your investors to help you out on this one. And that'll get you started. And at least now you can get the meetings on everybody's calendar. That's the first step that you want to do. The second step that you want to do is you want to meet with every one of your board members before the board meeting. Now, why is this important to do? Well, the reason it's important to do is you want to make sure that you discuss any key issues before the board meeting so you never, ever, ever surprise your board. Now, what is surprising your board meeting? That means telling them of some horrible thing that happened in the company before the meeting. You want to do that before the meeting. You don't want to do it during the meeting, because if you do it during the meeting, that's when people don't like it, because now you're surprising them in front of their peers and they're going to start losing faith and trust in you. So you really want to keep the communication crisp here. So what do? You meet with your board, you tell them what's going on with the company, have a nice friendly conversation. I like doing these things one-on-one. A couple days before the meeting, give them an idea of what they're going to hear, give them an idea of any key problems or issues. You want to discuss these beforehand, before the meeting. That's your mission in terms of what to do. That's the next thing that you want to do. That's thing number 2 on our list. The third thing on our list is we're going to review the presentations of our team before the meeting. Now, why are we doing this? It's really easy. We want to make sure that we catch the clunkers and we catch the mistakes before the meeting rather than during the meeting. Also, you want to look cohesive. You want to look like a team. You want to make sure that the presentations are similar from executive to executive that's going to go into the board meeting with you. That's why you want to do this preparation beforehand. You want to hear the presentation, you want to see the slides, and you want to correct the mistakes beforehand. That's what I did with my team. I'll give you an example of this. So one of my co-founders, his name was Ken, and Ken, who was our VP of sales at the start of the company, he had this slide where he called it Touchstone Touches. The name of my company was Touchstone. He called it Touchstone Touches. And I'm looking at the slide and it just had a bunch of icons of companies that he had talked to. I'm like, what the hell is this? What are you trying to get across here? And he gave me some weaselly answer that made no sense. And I said, you know what? Take this out. We don't want to do this. You want to correct the mistakes before the meeting, not during the meeting. That's the idea. And if your team has never presented to a board before, and most of you are going to be in this position, you want to help guide them and help them through this. That's our third point here. That's why it's important to do these things. Now for our fourth point, you want to send your slide deck out to your investors at least 48 hours, ideally 72 hours before your board meeting. This one is obvious. Why do we do this? We want the board to read the slides before the meeting so that they come in prepared and they have their questions ready to go. So it's an interactive and productive meeting between you and the board. So you want to ask them to review, specifically ask them to review the material before the board meeting. It's important to ask. So ask them to do this. Get them the material ahead of time so they have a chance to review this. That's our fourth point. Now we're ready to move on to piece number 2, the actual board meeting. Let's talk about that and go through what we need to do here. The first thing is you want to make sure your facility looks nice. Tell everybody on the team, hey, the board's coming in today. Our investors are coming into the facility. So you want the facility to look nice. You don't want trash around. You want it to look clean. Make sure all the lights are working. Make sure the bathrooms are clean. Super important. Even if you're sharing a bathroom with other companies in your facility, you want to make sure everything is clean and sparkling because all this stuff makes an impression. That's the first thing. Second, have your team in the meeting ready to go. Number 2, now why are we doing this? Well, because you want the team there and just want everybody there and prepared and ready. You don't want to have to round people up. So if your meeting's starting at 9 o'clock, have your team in the boardroom ready to go at 9 o'clock so that everybody's there, get started on time, get ready to go. Then finally, have snacks ready. You know, what do I mean by snacks? Have coffee ready, water, tea, all these basic things ready to go. Have it ready, have it set up, have somebody help you with all this stuff so that if you have a board member that likes coffee, have the coffee ready. If you have a board member that likes tea, have the tea ready. If somebody wants water, have bottled water ready. Whatever you need, have the stuff ready to go. Again, all these little things make an impression on your board. So you want to have all this stuff ready. Now, finally, again, these are small little things. If we're going through lunch, let's say we're starting at 11 and we're going to 1 o'clock, something like that, have lunch prepared, get lunch orders ready. Make sure you take into account if you have people, for example, that are keeping kosher, then you want to make sure that you get them kosher food. If they have a halal diet, you want to make sure that you're taking care of that, whatever it is. If they're vegetarian, make sure you have that taken care of. Make sure you do all these small little touches because they all matter. Okay, second, start on time. I already mentioned this, but if the meeting starts at 9 o'clock, get started at 9 o'clock. Don't wait. If somebody's late, they'll catch up. That's fine. Get the meeting started, get the meeting going. Be respectful of everybody's time. That's the second point we want to do. Third, as I said, have your team ready to go. Don't have them scattered around. If you have people that are stragglers on your team, really make it important for them to understand, hey, you got to be here. We're starting. You don't want to have people coming into meetings late or any of those types of things. It's important that the team is ready to go because you're going to start the meeting, but the team is going to be a large piece of the presentation as time goes on, and you want them there and you want them present. So have them ready to go. Then what's next? Well, that's fairly obvious, right? You're going to start the meeting, you're going to start the presentation, then your team's going to go through it. When you go through the meeting, go through the questioning and everything else. That's the next piece. So what's next? Well, you want to have an agenda, obviously. So let me walk through with you the agenda I like using for my board meetings, okay? Let's get started on this one. So here's the slide. You can see the slide, it's up. And here are the things that I like going through. I like starting off with a CEO summary. So this is where you go through your summary of what's going on with the company. You talk about highlights, lowlights, what's happening in the industry, whatever's pertinent. You give people kind of a flavor for what's happening with the company, what's happening in the industry, so they know what's going on. You're starting it off. Then you're going to turn it over to your team for the rest. So let's go through the basic areas of typically what you would cover and how you would cover this. The next piece is marketing. So you're going to go through marketing, then you're going to go through sales, engineering, operations, finance. Those are the next areas. Those are the basic areas of the business that you're going to go through. And what do we want to do here? We want to be very goal-oriented. So what we're going to do is we're going to first say, here's what we committed to in the last meeting. Here's how we did versus that. Now here's what we're committing to for the next meeting. And you want these to be very important goals for your board. You don't want them to be minutiae information. You want these to be pertinent information for your board to understand the workings of the business. So whatever it might be, for sales, it's going to be revenue based. For marketing, it might be leads based in terms of what it is. Whatever the function is responsible for, how are we doing to these key metrics? So you want to show the history, you want to show how you've done, how you're doing, what's coming next. So they get a flavor for each area of the business in terms of what's going on. So we're going to go through all the basic areas of the business. We're going to go through marketing, go through sales, go through engineering, operations, finance. You might have customer service, you might have quality, whatever the key functions are for your business. You want to make sure that the board comes away clearly informed about how the company's doing, and they get a feel for your executive team, because the bet is on you at the beginning, but the bet is on all of you as a team. And you're trying to show, hey, we're a team. We work well together. We're cohesive. We know what's going on. This is all part of it, and we're in control of each area of the business. That's the key. That's what you want the board leaving with, hopefully. Now you're going to ask your team to leave at this point. You're going to have what's called the executive private session. This is just you and your board. If you have a CFO, your CFO will stay also, because your CFO also reports to the board. But if it's just you, it's very early stage, it's just you and your board. Typically, what will you go through in this area? You're going to go through stock grants, to get those approved. Anything that's private information between you and your board, you're going to want all these things approved at this point in time. That's what you would go through in this section of the board meeting. Also, if they have information that they want to convey to you and they want to communicate to you, you want to give them that ability to communicate with you in terms of specific things that they want to tell you. So this is the executive private session. Now, the final piece, and this is an uncomfortable one, is the non-executive private session. You at least want to have this on the agenda. Let me explain what this is. This is where the board, if they decide they want to, talks about you. So you always want to give them the opportunity, as uncomfortable as it is, to talk about you, because they're all together. And if they want to communicate about you in terms of your performance, concerns, whatever it is, give them the ability to do it. It's rare that it happens, but sometimes they will ask you to leave the room. That's okay. You want to do this. So that's that part of the meeting. Now there's one final piece here that I want to make sure we cover. And that is, typically in a board meeting, you will have a secretary taking notes. Now by secretary, it's a special kind of secretary. It's not your admin. By secretary, typically this is the attorney for the company. The company's attorney will be in the board meeting. You need to make sure that he or she is invited to the meetings, and they will typically take notes. Now by notes is there'll be official minutes of the board meeting that are published. And you want these, as a rule, to be as vague as possible, because what happens is, in your next round of funding, your new investors are going to ask for the minutes of the board meeting. So let's say you're talking about, sales, and let's say there's a sales issue. Rather than going into the specific details, typically what a good board secretary will do will be say something like, discuss sales, discussion ensued, something like that. Very vague, just saying the specific points, but no detail. But you need a board secretary as well to be, quote unquote, taking notes and saying what was covered in the meeting. And also for any legal things that come up, because they're representing the company and making sure legally that you're in good standing. And sometimes, your lawyer will speak up and communicate about various things. One of my favorites was what's called the zone of insolvency, which just about every company gets into at some point or another in their life, where essentially you don't have enough money to cover your debts because you're very close. You're in the middle of fundraising and you're very close to running out of money. And then you tell the board, hey, and this is what happens is your Your attorney, because they have to, will say, hey, we're in the zone of insolvency, and the board will roll their collective eyes and say, okay, thanks for telling us, and nothing will change. And you're sitting there going, my God, we're right on the hairy edge of dying, and my board doesn't seem to care. And that's just part of a day in the life of a startup CEO, and a day in the life of a seasoned board member who's used to understanding what the zone of insolvency is. So you'll likely see that one happen too at some point in your life. So anyways, that's the board meeting, but we're not done yet. There's one more part. That's the post-board meeting management. So let's go there next. So what do we do in the post-board meeting? Well, it's obvious. The first thing is follow up with the board on any action items that you have or your team has. You want to make sure, if you're asked, produce more sales numbers, I need to see more detail here, whatever it is they're asking for, get them that information and get it to them quickly and make sure they got it. That's your job. That's part of it. The second thing is communicate with your board. Make sure you're still communicating with your board in terms of what's going on, in terms of what's happening with the company. Any between board meeting communication, you want to make sure that that is crisp and is happening well. That's the second piece. But again, we're not done yet. The third piece is, this is something I really like doing. Remember, you have a whole team of employees that isn't involved in the board meetings. And as time goes on, that team is going to grow and grow and grow. And they're curious, what happens? Well, there's really, when you think about it, very little that's proprietary in your board meetings. So what I like doing is, let's say in my company's case, we had board meetings on Thursday. We'd have an all hands company meeting on Friday. We'd serve lunch for everybody. And I would essentially open up the meeting, go through a set of prepared remarks, tell them what was going on, answer any questions they had. And then the team would walk through, just like we did with the board, all the various areas and all the information that we did with our boards. We'd go through essentially all of the slide deck, except for the executive and non-executive portions of the board meeting. Those two we keep private, but everything else we go through, answer any questions our team had, so they all felt informed about what was going on. It's a nice way to keep everybody in the loop. It's good for transparency. This really helps with camaraderie. Finally, don't be afraid if you have bad news. It's one of the things I learned over time. Do not be afraid of the bad news. Do not be afraid to tell your team, hey, we're behind plan, we're missing schedule, whatever. The more you communicate, the more open you are, the more transparent you are, the more loyalty you build, and the more your team is going to hang in there with you. So that's it. That's all of what's involved in a board meeting, how to prepare for it, how to manage it, and how to manage the after effects of your board meeting too. So I hope you enjoyed it. If you liked today's video, press the like button. If you want to subscribe for more great video content like this, press the subscribe button to this. I hope you enjoyed today's video. Please comment on what you liked about today's video in the comments column below. I am Brett at brettjfox.com. Have a great, great day.